Bobby again here at Enos Acres. We have two wonderful cows here on our farm. They're Jersey cows. We have Opal, who is our lighter colored Jersey cow, and Pearl, who's our darker colored one. A couple months ago, they both had calves. We've named them Bucky and T-Bone. They are both bull calves, therefore they will be meat. Because that's what we do here on Enos Acres. We grow a lot of our own food, including our own meat. They have a great life. As you can see, we have some great pasture and they like to have a lot of fun. We also have recently had some baby goats here on our farm, and they are super funny to watch. Every morning when I get home from work, I work overnight, so every morning when I get home from work, I milk my cows. It's kind of an ordeal. It takes about an hour, hour and a half total. It's something that I really enjoy doing. We have a little quality time. It's really fun to get to know the different cows and their personalities. Opal is usually almost always first. She has the nickname Chow Hound because she loves to eat, and she loves to come in, run in to get her grain while I'm milking. Pearl's a little bit more laid back, but she's also a fantastic milker. We ended up having to get a refurbished Surge milker from I think it's from about the 50s, because Opal's udders were so tiny and it hurt my hands, but Pearl has always been a pretty good milker. They both give me lots of milk. After I get done milking, I bring it in and I strain it into this gigantic beverage dispenser. I made sure that I got one that was all stainless steel and glass so I can sanitize it well. This is a 2.5 gallon capacity. So I strain the milk into here. A lot of times I have too much milk, but thankfully I have some family that like to have whole milk, so I just drain out the whole milk after I've strained it and then refill it up again. After that, the milk sinks down and the cream rises to the top. So once I have the cream risen to the top, it takes 24 hours. I then use the spigot to get the milk out of the bottom, and I kind of have my own way of making the different grades of milk. Some people that I give my milk to like skim milk. Other people like 2% and other people like whole. So the stuff at the very bottom I give to the people that like skim milk, and I say give because I do give it. Here in Iowa, as in most states, it is illegal to sell raw milk, so I'm very careful not to accept anything from my raw milk, and I'm very certain to tell all the people that would like my milk, I do let them know that it is raw, it's unpasteurized, unhomogenized, right from the cow. So the bottom part is all skim, and then as that cream is going down with the milk, it kind of mixes a little bit, so then we have some 2%, and then at the end I tilt it so I can get as much milk and cream as possible, well, the milk out before I get the cream, and then I get quite a bit of cream with that last little bit. And then what I have left is all cream. In order to make butter, it's actually one of the easiest things I've ever made. I thought it would be a lot more difficult to make, but it's really easy. There's a bunch of different ways you can do it. If you have kids that like to be busy, you can actually give them a mason jar, like what I have here. A quart would probably work better than a pint, but you can put some cream in there along with some sanitized marbles, screw on a lid real tight, and let them shake it or roll it around the ground. It's really fun for them to see that they can make butter. Another way is to whisk it. I sure don't have time for that. A lot of people use a mixer. A lot of people ask me how I make butter, and I ask them, have you ever made homemade whipped cream? And they look at me, and a lot of people have. So butter is just whipped cream that's been whipped more. I like to make it in my good old-fashioned food processor. I'm going to turn it on, so it'll probably be noisy, so I'm going to stop talking for a little bit.
It's actually pretty quiet.
It is? Okay. So, it's funny, when I started making butter, I noticed something. when I was beating it. Oh, if you only have a little bit of cream, I also have an immersion blender that I use for canning. That works great for a small amount of cream. When I first started and I wasn't taking the calves off at all of the moms, I was only turning about a cup to a cup and a half of cream into some butter. So that worked out really well because I didn't want to dirty up this whole machine. I will tell you a little bit about my cows now since this is going. I do what they call milk share. The calves drink on their moms all day, and then we separate them at night when I'm at work, and when I get home, that's when I milk. I do get significantly less milk than a dairy per cow because I do milk share. But I feel like this is a much more natural way to make sure the babies get what they need, but also get enough milk for my cows. So when I say I only get about 2.5 to 3.5 gallons a day for my cows, that doesn't sound like a lot if you know much about cows and milking. A lot of people say jerseys, one jersey will give you about 4 gallons a day, but yet again I'm milk sharing. And these cows, Braden and Robert, get that out of my picture. Are you kidding me? If you can hear it, it's changing sounds right now, but it's not quite done yet. It'll change one more time to when it's ready. And I just saw it turn. You can see, can you bring the camera in here? You can see the actual chunks now as opposed to it kind of being creamy. See how you can see how it's all kind of solid?
Yeah.
So then you just turn it off, and there you have. Oh, it's not quite done yet, actually. So this is that first step. This is past whipped cream, but not quite enough to be butter yet. If you stop it now, you will have some butter, but you won't get nearly enough. So I'm gonna go wash my hands, and I'll be right back while this is going. Okay, I'm gonna have you come in one more time and see how it's different now, because now we are ready. Now it's not kind of kneading in on itself. Now it's completely staying on the sides. And look at that. It's butter in some liquid. So what we have now is butter and buttermilk. So after we have our butter separated from our buttermilk, it's all pretty easy from there. So it is all chunky. I take out my, oh, I didn't mention this. I do use my cutting blade in there. That just whips it really fast. Watch out, these are very sharp. I've cut my fingers on them way too many times than I want to count. What I have here is a cheesecloth bag. I buy it on Amazon. But I like this for the butter because it's a lot easier than trying to mess around with cheesecloth. A big square of it. You just dump it all in there. Ooh, look at that butter. Now, we've made butter quite a few times here at Enos Acres since I've been milking for a couple months. And most of our butter before this was barely a creamy white. This butter is very yellow. And I'll tell you why. Our cows are now on a grass pasture because it's spring and we have plenty of grass. Before, they weren't on a grass pasture and they were eating some high quality hay and grain. So now that they're eating mostly grass, we have some nice yellow butter. The reason that a lot of food coloring started getting added to foods is because of this difference. Americans especially like to have a very consistent food product. So they don't like that sometimes it's a very light creamy white and other times it's very yellow. But I just would rather not have added food coloring into my food, so I'll deal with the fact that sometimes it's more yellow than others. Last week when we made cheese, we saw a huge difference. Our cheese that I'd made before turned out almost bright white, and then just by the time we were putting it into the cheese cave, it was much more colorful. So now in the bag I have butter, and in here I have buttermilk. Well, now I got a chunk of butter in there. I would have Lena come give me this cup, this big bowl of cold water. Now this is one step that I didn't know about when I first started making it, until I Googled it a little bit more and read the directions more. I don't know about you, but sometimes I don't read the entire directions. I just kind of get an overview. So look, here's my butter. Lena, will you take this, please? Thank you. So here's my butter, but there's still quite a bit of buttermilk in there. So what you have to do is you put it in a bowl of cold water, and then you start mixing it around with a wooden or stainless steel spoon. And as you see, all of that creamy stuff that's coming out of my butter is more buttermilk. If you don't get that buttermilk out, your butter will go rancid very, very fast. I'm going to have to do this a couple times, so we'll take a couple shots here, but this is kind of the important quiet step that you wouldn't know about. So as you see, it went from clear water again to kind of creamy or milky. Well, you can tell it has changed. It's not clear anymore. You want to make sure you kind of move it all around so all of the butter, all the buttermilk gets removed from that butter. It's funny, the milk also changes flavor with what the cows eat, and it changes odor. Right now, it smells kind of, well, for lack of a better word, beefy. I can kind of smell, like, I mean, when I opened up this gigantic thing of milk, I was like, why do I smell steak? It was kind of strange. Thank you again, Lena. So once you start moving this around, thank you, Peanut Gallery. Once you start moving this around and you don't get the creamy color that you were getting, then you've got almost all of the buttermilk out. This one looks pretty good. So now I'm just going to go dump it out with the butter in there. So now that you have it all rinsed out, you add salt. What I have here is actually kosher salt that I have put into a coffee grinder. So I've made what I call my popcorn salt, where it's very fine. You don't technically have to salt this if you want to have more of like a baking butter with no salt in it, but the salt does help pull out extra water, because you want to get as much water out of this as possible. I am shocked at how yellow this butter is. After we mix in the salt and dump out all the water, we're pretty much done. You can leave it in your bowl, but what we like to do is I have these silicone molds. Each one of these molds here is worth a stick of butter. It's the same 4 ounces as a stick of butter. Shaped differently, but I like to know approximately how much butter I have. You know, when I'm making mashed potatoes, I want to know comparatively to what I'm used to doing. So after you get it all mixed up and dump out as much water as you can, you scoop it out and you put it in your molds. You don't have to put it in a mold. We have some really cute antique butter molds that I had some epic fails on. One time I made butter and I threw it into the butter mold and I tried to pop it out to see this cute little design, and it didn't work. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? I have no design. It's all kind of gloppy. Well, apparently with the antique ones, you're supposed to soak it in ice water for a half hour before you do that. I didn't know. But this is nice and easy. What I do is I just leave it in the fridge for a while with some wax paper on top, and then I just pop the butter out of the molds. That's what's great about these silicone molds. They just invert and pop out. If you want to keep it for a long time, you can. You can wrap your homemade butter in wax paper and then in tin foil and throw it in the freezer. It won't change your butter. You don't want to leave it without the tin foil because butter absorbs the scent of everything that's around it. So if you have a lot of fish or onions in your freezer, your butter will now smell like fish or onions. So I have here about 2 3/4 sticks of butter. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Venus Acres. We hope you guys come back around again soon.